Hi, and welcome into Real Conversations, a film podcast that seeks to explore the history of the Reel-to-Reel International Film Festival presented by the Cleveland County Arts Council. I'm Festival Director Thomas Manning, and I'm joined today by filmmakers Brad Herring and Adé Carrena talking about their documentary Bite of Benin, an official selection for Reel-to-Reel 2025. So, Brad and Adé, it's great to meet y'all both. Thank you so much for your time, and really excited to be talking with y'all.
Really great to meet you too, and we're excited to be here.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. And from what I understand, you two met each other at a cooking school. I'd love to kind of go back to that initial meeting, and what clicked for y'all, and what made y'all realize that y'all would be getting along for a long time and heading to create a partnership together.
You want me to take this one?
Yes, so
Yeah.
you can take this one.
Yeah. So back in 2022, 2021, kind of shortly after the pandemic kind of opened everything up, I had to get back out of the house. And I was still working at a science museum in Durham. And I, I loved cooking and I was kind of toying with making these kind of short videos with my daughter and, some cooking videos. But I decided to kind of take a step into the kitchen and to professional kitchen and get more experience learning kitchen, meeting chefs, and signed up to be a volunteer at this cooking school where they have these classes for the public to come in. And one of the nights a day was cooking or doing a class on international spices. And so we were just kind of striking up a conversation. I think I was making what was it? We were wrapping some your empanadas, yeah.
Mhm.
And we just started chatting and I told her that I was leaving. I was going to start a film company and I was looking for chefs to kind of follow and make films around. And then she started telling the students or the participants in the class about her story of coming from Africa and this spice company that she runs and sources her spices. And kind of at the end of the class, I just turned to her and said, "Hey, have you ever thought of having someone follow you back to Africa and film? I'm a brand new filmmaker. I'm leaving my job. I'm opening up this film company and I need footage and it'd be free for you. You could have a commercial about your spice company." And, crazy enough, about 8 months later, she took me up on the idea and we were on a flight to Africa about 8 months later.
Yeah.
Yeah. Long-winded story. Sorry about that.
And Ade, you have a wonderful quote in this film. I'll paraphrase it, but you say, "I'm a chef by trade, but I like to call myself a storyteller." And then specifically, you mention the stories of the women who have shaped your life. So for you, when did you come to that realization that storytelling is ultimately your home, first and foremost before anything else?
That's such a great question. I think I came to kind of understand this thought when I started working in more like fine dining establishments and restaurants where I realized that food wasn't just like these people weren't coming here just to eat food because they were hungry, because there's a less expensive option to be honest than these places. So then I realized, okay, there's an intentionality around the desire to be in this space, so it goes far beyond the food. And the more I exposed myself to that world, I realized, and then being here in the South, and seeing the through lines between the foods I remember as a child in my home and the foods here that kind of shaped some of American food, particularly in the American South, I realized there are stories here. And not only that, cooking for us traditionally in my home is an oral tradition. You don't learn how to cook. It's a thing that's kind of there's a thing that happens surrounding the cooking, the food space, where you're hearing stories from your mom, your aunties, your grandmothers, and somehow the information transcends. So when I kind of had that light bulb moment that, oh, okay, I I happen to cook well, but really I'm trying to say something, and I realized storytelling was more of my path.
And I think this film, it's very obvious that there was a space created for emotional honesty in the interviews and the storytelling within those. So I'm curious, I guess, Brad, you can take this first, and then Ade, you can kind of piggyback off of that. But what is required as a filmmaker to fulfill that potential of the emotional potential of a documentary and make everyone comfortable with being open and vulnerable for the sake of sharing their stories?
Actually, can I
Go
start
for it. Absolutely.
because this was his first experience as someone making a film, and now forget it, we don't even get to see him anymore. He's always on the road. I think it's if I start lead with this question, there's an authenticity that's gonna come from the response. Uh I think after Brad said what he said to me, he said, I'm leaving, I'm asking chefs if they want to give me the space to film them cooking and make reels for them and things of that nature. And I came over to his house and I met his lovely wife and their beautiful daughter. He served me something I absolutely did not enjoy. He didn't know this. He gave me this goat cheese. I do not like goat
Wait,
cheese.
the food was
The
good.
food
It's
is
just,
good. It's me. It's my
yeah,
preference.
let's get that straight.
Yeah, it was my preference. But first, I could already feel being in his home, being around him and being around his wife and their daughter that there's something really special about this family unit. And obviously, I'm a Black woman. Brad is a white man. There's some trust issues there just naturally. uh, but when I started to get to know this person, and I understood that very clearly from the beginning, there was a clear understanding for me that Brad was on my team. Brad wanted to keep me safe. Brad was not trying to, because there was something that he thought was there, that he was trying to exploit that to create something because that was his desire to. There was a genuine interest in really just peeling and understanding the story first and foremost. And that's not how he didn't lead with, hey, sit here and tell me about all your trauma. We sat on my grandmother's rooftop for like 3 hours and had a really long conversation with no cameras. And he was like, oh my gosh, a day, there's like more here. And he held my hand. He created a safe sort of environment that we built a friendship. And I knew that like I could trust him. I knew he wasn't like he would care about how I looked on camera. He would care about, oh, is this too vulnerable? Are you okay? He wasn't trying to pull a story out of me. And I would say that's probably really important. Um, when you have someone who has gone through a lot of trauma and as an artist, that's what he is. You see the potential, you see the opportunity there to create something for your own self, but the goal isn't how do I do it at the expense of this person? That was very clear to me, and I didn't feel it. I didn't feel that at all, which allowed me to be more open. He held me. Um, and I just felt like his heart. He's such a good person. He's such a good person. And I could see it in his wife and his daughter too. And I was like, okay, these are good people. And I think it's okay to be vulnerable in this space. And I don't know if he even knows that he does this naturally, he creates a safety around, the people that we talk to. Even with my own mom, he wasn't like, no, go there, make her uncomfortable. Where I feel, even when we showed parts of this documentary to people in the beginning, they were like, well, what about like what was so bad about her adoption? Like what, like you need to show that. And he was like, well, we don't need to make trauma porn. We need to like be intentional about what we're doing, not to put you back in a space you don't want to be in. So as someone who is sitting on the in front of the camera, I think it's really important for um, a director or someone creating this work to really be mindful of who that person is and actually give care. And he really embodies that.
Yeah, I think thank you, Ade, for that. I think I would add to that, I came to this not knowing at all what I was doing. I came from a completely different field. And so starting this business, I didn't know the rules. And so I just did what I felt was the right thing to do for a fellow human, right? To treat them like a human and not as a subject. Like I would never call her a subject in my film. Maybe a character would be as far as I would go, but she's a human being and she's a person. And I think if you take care of them, it's just better things will come from what you're trying to get out of them if you make them feel more comfortable. And so treating them, I mean, I remember when we were finalizing the film and I had to start doing the credits, I was so naive. I just remembered Googling, can a character in a film also be the director of the film, co-director, and but it was important for me to give her 100% of control of this film. It's her story. I'm the vehicle that's helping her tell it, but she's the one who has to stand up in front of audiences and take this. And I'd always wanted to be a filmmaker. I'd always wanted to kind of make a documentary, but this was more about, I saw from the very beginning the potential to help others, and it wasn't about me making a name for myself or even making a name for a day. I just said, hey, a day, you don't understand, but the power of your story can help others. And sometimes when you're kind of feeling this trauma, you're in it and you've experienced it your whole life, you don't understand how when you start to deal with these and how you come out of them, that you're a vehicle to kind of help other people. And so I saw that in her and said, you just have this charisma, this personality that you can help others. And we've seen it so much. Every time we play this film, there's someone who's adopted, there's someone who connects on some level. And that's really the most powerful moment you can have, and why we make these films, or why I choose to make films, like this.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you both for sharing that. Yeah, and I think our audience, I'm sure there will be some tears whenever we show this to our audience at Reel to Reel. Um, and obviously, it is a culinary based film. And I think the first scene of the film shows us that cooking is a very mechanical process. And so I'd love to hear about finding that balance in the film of showing that preparing food is just as much of a technical and scientific experience as it is an emotional and theoretical one, because I think y'all find that balance beautifully in this film. Is what were some things you had in mind to really communicate that message and that balance between those?
I think I think living in America, there's this like convenience is a thing that we're always seeking. So like a blender, a stove or electric stovetop, all the things that make cooking a little bit easier, we kind of gear towards, we lean more towards those types of things. And cooking in my culture is very taxing, is very labor intensive. And I think that in itself was really important to show. The grinding rice is not a small task. Grinding rice starts with soaking it, then drying it, then you getting on a bike to drive to ride to the guy who's going to grind it for you. It's so layered. There's so many steps in the way that we cook that personally for me, I think it was really important to show the ways in which the women do this in my culture, and that is not an easy, be it full of love and certainly an act of love and care and nurture. It is coming at the expense of something, and that's most of the time your body. And that I think was really important to show. Like grinding is not happening in a blender. We're literally using stone to grind a bay leaf or peppers or spices. The convenience isn't there in the same way we have it here. And it's also a reminder to me to also honor that sort of tradition. So in some of the ways that I cook too here, I embody that to keep that sort of tradition alive, to remember that food was always supposed to be a thing that like nourished us. It's an alchemy, there's energy exchange happening, and it's not necessarily was meant to be this like quick thing that happens, you know? Like it's very intentional. And I think that first scene really shows that it's more than just we throw a bunch of stuff in a pot and then, you know, you eat it. It's there's a lot of intention behind it.
Brad, was there anything you wanted to add there from your standpoint?
No, other than like, the depth of flavor in African cuisine was just something of, I knew that was something that had to be captured, like the entire process of the layering that they do throughout the whole entire cooking process. Um, but ultimately this was a film about food, a film about identity, and there's multiple layers to that as well. So um, yeah, I think the other thing that we wanted to kind of come out in this film was that Africa is not a monolith, and that I think a lot of us kind of have a vision of what we think Africa is, and so we really wanted to kind of portray this, the life, the daily life of like the grind, the process of doing everything, but the color. We always say kind of the color of our film is one of the characters of the film. That it kind of really helps to kind of show this beautiful place that's so different everywhere you go throughout Africa.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very beautiful film thematically and visually, audibly. I was really taken with the sound design and the cinematography. Um, I'm sure there's
I
a,
appreciate that
yeah,
because that was
yeah,
like $100 mic that I bought, from and yeah, so I appreciate that. That means
yeah.
a lot.
Well, I'm sure, is there pressure on you to respect the meal and the food that you're capturing with the lens? And how do you feel about that? And just because it's an art that you're capturing with your own art form.
Yeah, it's funny because I really can't take a picture to save my life, but somehow when you put a camera in my hand with video, I can get the angles. I don't know, it just feels more natural to me. And I never really felt stressed about kind of the capturing of it. It was more the technical side and are all the settings on here correct? Or because I was watching hours of YouTube after I bought my camera 2 months before we flew to Africa, but to make this film. Um, so everything was so new to me, and I just kind of I felt like it was also so new for her. She never had a camera following her nonstop. In fact, like I said earlier, we went over there to make a commercial about a spice company, and it was like we changed gears halfway through. We were there for a month, and it was like we started like these interviews and doing a little bit more in depth. So things kind of started evolving. We were both kind of learning how to communicate without communicating.
Mhm.
Um, and now when we're in the kitchen, we can film and communicate and go without talking. We just kind of feel each other. And so it's just this chemistry that we've kind of built that's kind of unique. And every time I try to talk about my age and my retirement one day, she's like, "No."
No, he left one career to start a new one. That's what we like to remind him. Like you just started. You're not going anywhere. But he just has a talent. You know, this some of us are born with it, some of us have to learn it, but he just simply has it. Like he can see he's got it. That's it. That's the simplest way to put it.
And this documentary in its current form is at about 30 minutes long, but I also believe y'all are working on developing it into a feature-length film. Is that correct?
Yeah, we've got a bunch of ideas running through the head, running through our kind of team that we've put together. We've really brought in some quality folks who've kind of been with us since this film kind of launched, and so they're kind of helping us think and write and connecting us with money and potentially going out for funding and so forth. So we just spent a month in Europe and France, filming with the first Black woman to win a Michelin star chef in France. and we filmed a little bit in London as well. So we're working on some new ideas for either a feature or maybe something else that we're kind of playing and toying around with. But
Yeah, Thomas, if you know where we can find some money, you send us that way because what I've realized is it's kind of outgrown my own story, it's was very clear from the feedback we were getting from folks that there's more to do here. There's more to uncover. There's an entire industry, adoption that needs to be uncovered. There's an entire system of displacement that needs to be addressed. There's an entire kind of like, talking about food and identity that needs to be talked about, like the intersection of your biology and the ecosystem of the food from which you come from. There's so many things that came up for us after we did this that it's like, okay, so there's more work to do. But thanks to Brad, which is in part really a lot on him, the first one was like self-funded. But it gets expensive, I mean, you've made films, right? Like I guess so we need some help in telling these stories and shifting the narratives.
Well, listen, the more people we can get to see your film, I think the more support you will get and the more hopefully funding because it's a beautiful story and I think it deserves to be told and to reach many more people. And Brad and Ade, it was a privilege to share a conversation with you about Bite of Benin and really excited to be showing it at Reel to Reel. Before we wrap up here, is there anything else that y'all want to make sure you mention or anything that I didn't ask that you'd like to expand upon or I'll just give you all the floor here for a minute, or if you just want to wrap it up, that's all good too.
no, I just want to thank you because there's a lot of folks like you that run these small, often overlooked film festivals. And there's obviously some giant film festivals out there that we would love to get into, but we've had way more meaningful conversations and interactions with people when we go to the smaller film festivals, the more intimate crowds. Um, and so we just thank you for giving us that platform because without, your platform, somebody can watch this on Vimeo down the road eventually, but we really want to have these conversations take place afterwards. We want to have the dialogue take off from the film out into the community. And so there's no better way to do that than film festivals. So we're just, we're super grateful to you and your team for putting this on and your community for inviting us out.
Yeah, really excited to be there and to be in the space with you all.
Yeah. Well, we're looking forward to it as well. And for those listening, the film once again is A Bite of Benin, and we're talking with Brad Herring and Adé Carrena. And be sure to join us at the Reel to Reel International Film Festival. That is July 23rd to 26th at the Joy Performance Center in Kings Mountain, North Carolina. And we hope to see you all there. Thank you so much for listening.